and people tend to want to listen to voices who they can relate to. So I'm someone who, when I consume content, I really like to consume content by other women.
How do you look at the role of stablecoins in relationship to Bitcoin? And is it a net positive, or are there some challenges and headwinds there?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think that stablecoins are a great on-ramp, but going back to what I mentioned earlier, you want to spend your depreciating currency and save in your appreciating asset, which is Bitcoin. So I think that's one of the reasons why people tend to spend stablecoins. Now, here in the US, I'm going to admit I've never used a stablecoin. I have not found a use case for it in my own life and business activities. But when I talk to people who are overseas, stablecoins have been a lifeline, and they view it as a currency that they really want to exchange their fiat for, to use as a checking account, and maybe, hopefully, they save in Bitcoin. But I think stablecoins are poised to grow. I know that the administration has some wild forecasts in terms of just how many trillions of dollars are going to be flooding into the stablecoin industry. And I think part of that is they're trying to find ways to both manufacture demand for our US treasuries, as well as kind of sterilize the yields and the reserves. And I think they're going to find a way to do that using stablecoins in some capacity. And we have seen an increase in stablecoin payments being used, at least among banks. So I think the industry is poised to grow. But again, it's essentially, a dollar or whatever fiat currency as the mechanism, as the backing. So you know that they're going to print more. So the thing you want to save in is Bitcoin, and maybe you spend your stablecoins.
How do you see the United States' role in this, and especially maybe some of the things that are breaking down in the system, or the targeting of people that's really driving Bitcoin adoption?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I try to break some of that down in Bitcoin is for everyone, and the fact that we rely so much on these intermediaries and these gatekeepers that we essentially have to ask for permission to use our own money. And even though it seems far-fetched, we have seen people in the US, including people in our space, the Bitcoin space, as well as the administration, get debanked for whatever their views are, whatever their businesses are. And that's not right, because that, I think, violates a person's property rights. Their ability to actually financially transact is so core to our freedom. So I think as governments and as institutions and banks become more hostile to the individual, it only puts a spotlight on the benefits and the amazing tool that is Bitcoin as a tool for freedom. And of course, we do hear so many of these powerful stories overseas where people are facing far worse currency crises and inflation much worse than the US, which is why I think Alex Gladstein kind of has the best quote. It's like, check your financial privilege. Yes, we have radical inequality that's growing here, and wealth concentration, and people frustrated. But if you look overseas, people that haven't had the dollar as the lifeline that it has been here, they've been really, really struggling and having their resources essentially just drained away from them. And sometimes they wake up in the morning and their currency has been debased by 50 or 100%. And it's by, they have no control over it. It's by leaders that they don't even elect. So I think the more that we shine a spotlight on how Bitcoin is a tool for freedom for people all around the world, the more I think people will wake up to the fact that now we can finally be our own bank and start to save in a politically neutral technology that's open to everyone, no matter how much they're worth.
Do you think that every one of the banks, like let's just take the major incumbent banks, do you think they eventually have Bitcoin on their balance sheet and they look at this as like a reserve type asset? Or is this something where it's more of, hey, it's great collateral to lend against, it's great to sell, kind of Bitcoin related products to our customers, but it's more so like we're giving our customers what they want versus we're using it internally for the value proposition ourselves?
I do think that eventually at least a small portion of the balance sheet will be reserved for Bitcoin as a form of true digital capital. I mean, right now, the capital requirements for banks, I don't know if you saw the latest quiet bank rule change that happened. I covered it in the news block. But again, they're basically changing the leverage ratio so that the banks can hold more risk-off treasury assets, which are supposedly, the risk-free asset that underpins the whole system. But we see how much risk they actually carry. They carry a tremendous amount of duration risk in the form of inflation. You will never get your real value back. And they do increasingly hold some default risk. If you look at the credit default swaps and the numbers there, I mean, people are getting a little bit nervous about our macro situation, especially given the fact that in a few years, Social Security is going to be pretty much insolvent. So I think people really need to take this seriously. I think that banks banks eventually will be incentivized to hold Bitcoin, just like every company. But let's make sure all the families are holding Bitcoin. We still have a great opportunity to front run all these institutions, I think.
At the same rate, if you go back to 2020 and look over the last 5 or 6 years, you see Bitcoin being up like 400% and gold not doing nearly as well. And so how do you think about the relationship between these two assets? Obviously, Peter Schiff's big gold bug, you're a big Bitcoiner. Who's right? Or maybe both of you right?
I think over the long run, Bitcoin will outperform, and that's what we have seen. So we might be wrong in the short term, and it has been disappointing that Bitcoin hasn't done as well as many of us were hoping or forecasted that it would do in 2025. But I would prefer to be wrong in the short run and right in the long run. And that's what I think we are with Bitcoin. It has outperformed almost every other asset over the last 5-10 years. And I'm not here to trade the market or try to time it in order to, win over a 4-week or 6-month cycle. I want to be right for the next 100 years. I want to pick the winner that is going to protect me from the currency debasement, protect my family, allow me to plan for retirement, for having a family. And that's what I think Bitcoin offers the ordinary person.
How do you start to talk about Bitcoin with people who either don't think that they're normally really interested in finance, or maybe there's women who are interested in, they say, I don't see a lot of women that are creating, content on the internet about this, or somebody who's in a friend group who's like, none of my friends are into this, so maybe I shouldn't be into this. Like there's a lot of groups. It's not just, male and female that you kind of look at and you say, hey, how do we go and actually spread the word or educate people about this thing? What have you found that's been effective in that arena?
Yeah, I love this topic. I mean, I think you just have to meet people where they are, and people tend to want to listen to voices who they can relate to. So I'm someone who, when I consume content, I really like to consume content by other women. But Bitcoin didn't have a lot of that. So I learned a tremendous amount, but I felt like there is a need for more female voices to inspire others to get in and make them feel like, hey, this is approachable, this is relatable, and this is something that I can embrace as well. And that's what I've tried to do with the Women of Bitcoin brunches and events, which have really become decentralized. One of the coolest things is when I see people hosting them in cities and countries around the world, which has been really exciting. But ours has grown from 100 women at the Bitcoin conference in 2022 to hopefully this year, we're going to beat the record of 500 women in our 5th year, which is really exciting. And I do want to share an anecdote that I think a lot of people don't know, but one of the things that gave me courage to actually leave my journalism career was when you reached out to me and you wanted to address this market. And we did a Women of Bitcoin course. And it was, again, for the purpose of getting women involved and making them feel like they are represented. And so I thank you for that, because, I was sitting in my news job thinking, like, how do I contribute more? How do I get more involved? And between the podcast and feeling like I could really be an educator, that I think gave me a lot of courage to get out there and serve as a voice and serve as a platform that people can learn from and watch and grow together.